2 years ago, we sold everything that we owned, except for the dog of course, and bought a 300-year-old, crumbling, abandoned and mushroom-filled English country mansion full of room after room of forgotten treasures hoarded by various wealthy English families for the past 500 years. Over the past 2 years, we have worked tirelessly to restore this incredible building back to its former gobsmacking glory. Along the way, we have found untold treasures, including 3 pianos, swords hidden behind walls, boxes of gunpowder, ancient maps, boxless boxes of nails, and hundreds of hidden messages left by the previous owners. Following a positively biblical flood and years of neglect, Duncombe House was falling apart at the seams. There were myriad mushrooms growing out of the walls, ceilings were collapsing, and the only remaining residents were millions of mice. When we were handed the literal flower pot full of keys to our miniature country estate here in the Staffordshire countryside, we had no idea what was in store for us. During the past 730 days, we have been burgled, we've nearly been arrested ourselves, we've made and lost friends, and our relentless efforts to save this forgotten house have literally hospitalised us on more than one occasion. On top of Duncombe House itself, we quickly realised we had also bought a derelict Victorian greenhouse, an ancient orchard, a gardener's bothy swallowed by nature, a time capsule coaching house, an annexed billiard room full to the rafters with forgotten treasures, and a wash house brimming with original features. All full of forgotten treasures for us to explore. Our friends and family all said that we were stark raving mad to take on a project so vast and with so many problems, but to a pair of hopelessly romantic, hapless nincompoops like ourselves, that just made us more determined. This journey of renovation, restoration and discovery has been nothing short of life-changing. This is my fantastic wife Jazzy. This is our dog Quincy. This is our cat Dean. This is our Victorian hermit and head of health and safety Robert, aka Captain Chaos. And this is me. Today, my friends, I am going to share with you our journey. The good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So with that in mind, get comfortable and buckle up. It's time to travel back to where all the best stories start. The beginning. Before we got the aforementioned flower pot full of keys to our miniature estate here in the heart of the English countryside, we had spent a grand total of 4 minutes inside of Duncombe House, and had never stepped foot in any of her outbuildings. When we walked through the door on day 1, we could not believe what we had just bought. Now, the word abandoned gets thrown around a lot on the internet, but in my humble opinion, unless your house has room after room after room of forgotten treasures, and you have Lucozade and hula hoops from the 1980s still in your walk-in fridge, your house isn't abandoned, it's just a bit pants. I'll be honest with you, bravado aside, we were totally overwhelmed. Not only by the amount of stuff which we had just bought and now had to sort through, but also by the terrifying level of decay and dereliction. We knew we were in for a large renovation, but we could never have begun to imagine the eventual scale of this project. Our budget and time frame almost immediately looked ridiculous, and we realised that if we ever wanted to save this incredible house and its collection of outbuildings, it was going to take every minute of our time, every penny of our savings, and every last drop of our sanities. To add yet another level of complexity to proceedings, in the time it had taken us to agree and complete the purchase of Duncombe House, I had been diagnosed with a spot of cancer. And although I was doing famously, it was a rather suboptimal addition to the stress levels. Before we could even start thinking about paint colours or bathroom tiles, we had some serious hurdles to overcome. The house was full of forgotten treasures. including furniture, Victorian safes, boxes of books and documents, and plenty of objects that we had never even seen before. We knew that the house was getting more and more rotten every single day, but before we started to dry her out and properly evaluate the damage, the stuff had to go. And when I say go, don't for one moment think that I mean into the skip. We are just as bad for hoarding as the generations that came before us, and we simply couldn't risk throwing something away that might be historically important or, even better, extremely valuable. The problem, of course, is that with the amount of treasure we had just inherited, there was no way that we had time there and then to go through it all. The house was falling down and needed urgent repairs, so we made a big decision. We bought our very own bright yellow shipping container, which we christened the Container of Curiosities. We boxed up everything from the house, including the Victorian beds, artwork and Christmas decorations, and stored it all safely on the drive, ready for us to meticulously sort through at a later date. Next, we needed heat. Now, the two boilers at Duncombe House were both solidly kaput, and although the original cast iron radiators, which we actually found the receipt for from 1937 in a box of papers, were magnificent, they were doing nothing to dry out our home. And like something out of Jumanji, they were actually letting the ivy grow into the house. So we found the biggest log burner we could, pulled out the old Argo which had almost disintegrated from the flood, relaid some stone in the hearth, and after some jiggery-pokery and some help from friends, got it going. We unblocked all of the chimneys and lit the old crumbling fires, and filled the house with heat for the first time in almost a decade. With the house very slowly drying out, we attacked the mushrooms, tore off the sodden wallpaper, removed as much rotten wood as we could find, and let her breathe. The rest of the first summer was then spent trying to get her watertight and generally sound on the outside. We hired a cherry picker and almost immediately got it stuck. Got the barge boards sand blasted and spent months sanding down and repairing every single window to try and stop the rot. Now, the most spectacular parts of the house we felt were the huge bay windows and the old front door, so we tackled them next. The door came off entirely, and after meticulously stripping off the old paint, sanding it back and then repainting it in the original Duncombe House green, it was almost ready. But not before we spent a ridiculous amount of time restoring the original lock, which, after plenty of elbow grease, came up fantastically. The bay windows, in the end, and I joke you not, took us well over 1,000 hours in total to restore. We had to cut out the rotten sections and replace them, sand off centuries of paint from the convoluted timber details, fill all the holes, and then sand them again before we could add the multiple coats of paint they needed to be well protected. We even had local squirrels eating the lead off the roofs, but with the help of our roofer Driv and his ye olde skills, we were able to repair the holes and save the windows for years to come. The really scary thing about working on these windows is that they hold a secret message from the past. Etched in the corner of the right-hand bay is a message that reads, "May God's blessing rest on us in this house. John and Elizabeth Green," who, as we know from historical research, lived at Duncombe House over 150 years ago. Of course, we are only human, so the first summer was also spent in part exploring all of the abandoned outbuildings. We discovered grotesques hidden under the bushes, a perfectly intact Minton tile floor in the greenhouse, a billiard table covered in centuries worth of treasures, and a secret room we had no idea was even there. We uncovered the original staircase which had been concealed and totally forgotten, climbed into the loft of the coach house to find a time capsule of Victorian Britain, and ventured into the mysterious gardener's bothy. One of the biggest problems we had were the mice. Not only had they made the house their home and were eating their way through all of the amazing furniture, but they also very quickly started eating our possessions. That's when we decided to grow our family and welcome Dean and Borgia. These two made themselves at home straight away, and within no time, all the mice had magically moved out. Before we knew it, Christmas was approaching, our first Christmas here at Duncombe House, and the place was still derelict. Not ones to be disheartened, however, we pulled out some of the forgotten Christmas decorations left in the wash house and did our very best to bring some festive joy to our cold, damp and crumbling house. We had made it to Christmas and the end of 2024. We had spent almost all of the money that we had set aside for the project, and despite trying to stay positive, 2025 was looking very uncertain. It was also around this time, by some bizarre twist of fate, and truly without intention, we went viral on social media. Before we knew it, we were feeding a voraciously hungry content machine and basking in over 1 million Instagram followers. Now, considering I'd started the year in a hospital bed, not knowing whether I would even see Christmas, it's safe to say that 2024 ended very differently to how it began. The first winter was absolutely brutal. Even with the fires, the house was so cold that there was literally ice on the inside of the windows every single day. As we cleared out the house, we found more and more messages from the past and clues as to who and what had been done at Duncombe House over the last 300 years. Behind every fireplace, we found priceless social history. Every single day, we found another amazing treasure and started to document them all on our Instagram. I would need a whole video to show you everything that we've found, and by the way, we still have heaps of rooms we haven't even touched yet, but so far we've uncovered stamp collections, cat statues, boxes of books filled with diaries unopened for centuries, toys, sports equipment, pre-war exercise machines, records from the 1920s, swords hidden behind walls, a 1904 version of the internet, antique socket sets and power drills, 5 tea sets and counting, travel chests, joinery chests, Victorian tabletop games, collectible oil drums, hundreds of photos, jars of old food, a veritable cornucopia of smoking paraphernalia, a bear trap, and even a boxless box of nails. Someone even spotted their grandfather in one of our old magazines. They reached out and we were able to reunite it to them. After sorting out lots of the outside of Duncombe House and making sure that no more water was going to come in, we started on the inside. We realised very quickly that lots, if not all, of the walls had been replastered in gypsum opposed to lime, which meant that almost the entire house needed replastering. We started taking off the old rotten plaster in a few select rooms, and before we knew it, we had spent months taking the entire house back to original brick and stone. We removed the old antique cast iron radiators, which were insanely heavy, and drove them 100 miles to be expertly restored, ready to go back into the house when the time came. We tore out the old and dangerous boiler that was leaking water into the foundations, ready for the new boiler to be installed. We employed an amazing electrician, JJ, who helped us to safely decommission the lethal and ancient wiring system and started planning where the new sockets and switches would be going, so that he could run the first fresh wires. All through this, we also had our stalwart head of health and safety, Robert, aka Captain Chaos, who lives next door and visits us and helps us every single day. With his Polaris, digger and tractor, so many jobs were made easier. He may have run over all of our traffic cones, thrown half of our logs into the bushes and constantly smokes whilst pouring petrol, but we simply wouldn't be where we are now without him. It was around this time that we found the gunpowder. Not thinking twice, I made a video where I set light to a small pot of this 100-year-old black powder. The next moment, the police were at the house. Some tempestuous fun sponge tattletale had decided that they had nothing better to do than dob us in. It was only after the police realised that we were hapless, not heinous, that they decided not to arrest me for possession of explosives. Valentine's Day that year was spent with baked beans and jacket potatoes cooked on the log burner. When spring 2025 arrived, it was a huge relief. We had scaffolding erected in the areas the cherry picker could not reach and got back outside to start repointing the house, removing the cement-based mortar that was locking in all the dangerous damp and repointing it in luscious lime. We simply didn't have the money to pay someone else to do this, so we went on a heritage building course and cracked on ourselves. We had the chimneys rebuilt, reflaunched and repointed before they came crashing down into the house. All this time, we were fastidiously protecting the original features so that we could put them back into the house when it was dry and safe to do so. One of the most amazing things we have is the old servant's bell system, or as my wife Jazzy likes to call it, the ding-a-ling.
Ding-a-ling!
We carefully removed it with the help of JJ and Rob, restored it, and will be putting it back into the house very soon. Once all of the soaked and rotten plaster was off the walls inside, the place really started to dry out, so we quickly took the opportunity to pop to the seaside and get married. We started to explore more and more of the incredible gardens. We sorted the lawn, cleared the yard, removed decades worth of ivy from the walls and the house itself, cleared the flower beds, built our very own swing, and with Rob's help, removed some of the dead, decaying tree stumps and cleared all of the briar and bramble from the ancient apple orchard. We found more architectural treasures hidden in the bushes, like this 500-year-old scrollwork and this place stone, laid by none other than Lady Florence Duncombe herself in 1896, and were able to really start to see the potential of our garden space. That second summer at Duncombe House was fantastic, but we decided to set ourselves a mission: be in the house for Christmas. It was ambitious, it was bold, but with the budget all over the shop and our patience wearing dangerously thin, it felt like an essential goal. So we ramped everything up a gear. Not only with renovations, but also with YouTube, committing to a new YouTube video every single week. Our electrician JJ charged ahead with the new wiring, making sure that not only the new installation was exactly where we needed it, but that the old electrics in the house weren't dangerous anymore, and that Jazzy's servant's bell project was perfectly wired. The plumbers Mark and Ed cracked on famously, removing the failed pipes which had caused all of our problems to start with, and began running the new central heating and hot water pipes. After several massive summer storms where we realised pretty quickly that the gutters and downpipes were disastrously damaged and blocked, we took every single one down, repainted them, re-levelled them and refixed them using the traditional methods. All this time, we were still spending every spare hour trying to finish the bay windows. Longer and longer days, more and more filming, and then suddenly, it all came crashing down. Literally. One misstep on the platform after a long day on the windows, and before I knew it, I was laid on the lawn, covered head to toe in paint, with my ankle in ribbons. After 11.5 hours in the hospital emergency room, they told me that although it wasn't broken, I had torn a bunch of the most important tendons and ligaments in my ankle. Without total rest for at least 2 months, there would be simply no getting better. I managed about 4 hours. I became best friends with my space boot, and with the help of my loving wife, Quincy, Dean and Borgia, the show went on. We bought the harvest in, juiced the apples, and then just as autumn was starting to arrive, we finally finished the bay windows. We rebuilt the floors and then the ceilings that had collapsed after the flood, adding heaps of sheep's wool insulation to make sure this winter wasn't as cold as the last. Driv, our roofer, returned once again to help us sort out the 1001 leaks which were coming through the coach house roof. On top of all this, renovation, restoration and rejuvenation, we were of course still finding treasure after treasure on an almost daily basis. When we found this mind-boggling hand-painted map of Duncombe House and the surrounding estate from 1840, however, we knew we'd found something truly special. In another bizarre twist of fate, Quincy and the cats, especially Borgia, had developed an incredible connection and were making every day at Duncombe House even happier, more hilarious, and, frankly, positively peculiar. With the first fix electrics and plumbing completed, it was time to get the house plastered. Because the house needed specialist lime plaster to prevent the damp from coming back and to protect its heritage features, we knew it would be an expensive job. But when we had the quotes back, all in the region of £70,000, we were, frankly, devastated. We simply couldn't afford it, and therefore there was only one option. It was back up to Womersley's for another heritage training course, this time in traditional lime plastering. With the help of a family friend, Louis, who is a real plasterer, we started the insanely daunting task of plastering the entire house from top to bottom. As autumn turned to winter, we were once again full steam ahead for a Christmas finish, and with my foot healing, we were riding pretty high. That's when the first true disaster struck Duncombe House. Our wonderful, confident and gregarious cat Borgia wandered too far from home and was tragically struck by a car. Losing Borgia was devastating, not only to us but also to his brother Dean and Quincy. However, the show simply had to go on. We plastered the lath walls in the main bedroom and dressing room. We plastered the fibre-boarded ceilings in the room of doom, and the external brick and stone walls took insulating lime render before Louis did an expert job of finishing them off. As Christmas approached, it slowly started to dawn on us that the chances of us having a family Christmas at Duncombe House that year were getting slimmer and slimmer. However, we had yet another massive surprise just around the corner. Because the United Kingdom has a draconian tax system, 2 weeks before Christmas, our Kafkaesque council served us a notice. Without warning, they had quadrupled our monthly property taxes, taking our bank account overdrawn and leaving us in a state of abject panic. Their reasoning was that Duncombe House had simply been empty for too long. So, despite the fact that we were working tirelessly day in, day out to save this heritage asset, we had no choice. Just before Christmas 25, we cleared the office, we mopped the floors, moved in some furniture, tried to stop the dust, and I moved in to Duncombe House. In the face of all this nonsense, that Christmas we decided to run a charity Christmas card campaign and raised over £2,000 for the Salvation Army. Let's just say that we were in need of some festive cheer. The second winter of 2026 was even colder and darker than the first, and still without any central heating or lighting, simple day-to-day tasks felt impossibly hard. Everything was freezing, from the wheelbarrows to the triple taps in the wash house, and our morning ritual of starting the fires in the dark was getting a tad tedious. On one of the few nights I wasn't curled up in my office because I was visiting my grandmother, to add insult to injury, we were burgled by this merry band of mungbeans. We were snowed in on multiple occasions and still had ice on the inside of the windows every single morning. Before we could mount the last radiators, however, we had to plaster downstairs. Before we could finish plastering downstairs, we had to finally remove the totally inappropriate reinforced concrete fireplaces. With the help of a heritage fireplace specialist, we selected reclaimed antique originals from the same year as the house was built, ready to be installed when the time came. At every turn we found more and more history and more messages forgotten to the past. We found Victorian stained glass windows, abandoned artworks, 200-year-old bound books, and box after box of assorted gallimaufry. With one final monumental push, we managed to finish all the plastering downstairs. We repaired and finished the final 2 ceilings in the nursery and in the boot room, and even managed to find time to plant a 200-metre long hedge along the orchard boundary, despite getting very stuck. The next thing we absolutely had to focus on was the central heating. Although all of our reconditioned cast iron radiators were restored and ready, these could only go in after decorating, so we had to add some supplementary convection radiators to battle the age-old issue of haphazard heritage insulation. Eventually, with the help of our amazing team of plumbers, the moment finally came for the big switch on. Feeling the house warm again for the first time in years was truly emotional. It felt like a weight had been lifted from Duncombe House, and suddenly everything felt more possible. Having ignored it for far too long, and knowing full well that we should have prioritised it as one of our first jobs, we eventually pulled out the tons of collapsed and damp fiberglass insulation in the loft and replaced it entirely with sheep's wool. After 2 years of toil and tumult, we are finally starting to see the bigger picture. We have restored the original cast iron bath, begun to restore antique furniture pieces ready to go back into the house, and are starting to choose bathrooms, kitchens and lighting. Despite the fact we still have the main house to finish, the washroom to restore, the coach house to renovate, the greenhouse to overhaul, the bothy to explore, and room after room of forgotten treasures still to unearth, we are also definitely on the cusp of a monumental shift in our project. In reality, this video includes a tiny fraction of the trials and tribulations which we have faced over the past 2 years, and doesn't even begin to detail all the treasures which we have found. Duncombe House is a genuine historical treasure, a truly abandoned and mysterious time capsule, the likes of which are almost never found. If you want to explore the full story, then we welcome one and all to subscribe to our channel, where not only you can catch up on the veritable cornucopia of chaotic chronicles so far, but can also join us as we carry on this magical journey of renovation, restoration and discovery. And if the 300-year-old abandoned English mansion isn't enough to get you subscribed, in the next couple of weeks, Quincy is having puppies. Ladies and gentlemen, please do immediately furnish us with your comments. Like the video if you liked the video, hype the video if you hyped the video, follow us on Instagram, Facebook and TikTok, and subscribe to the channel, because I can guarantee you that the fun has only just begun. TTFN.